they looked at me and they said, "You're not going to go looking like that to your job interview, right? With the beard and the hat." I said, "This is who I am. I'm going to go with my hat, with my jacket, my tzitzis." So I found out by many years later that amongst the people who interviewed me, the fact that I came dressed the way that's very clear, and they knew that this is how a Hasidic person, a Jewish person, dresses, that I wasn't afraid to be who I was, actually played a huge role in me not only getting offered the job, but them acceding to my many requests. And so I think it's exactly the opposite. When a person is proud of who they are, people respect that. Or as Lord Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory used to say, people respect Jews who respect Judaism.
Welcome to Ordinary People with Extraordinary Stories. I'm Chana Weisberg, host of this podcast. Joining me today, I'm really excited to introduce you all to this fabulous guest. His name is Rabbi Dr. Binyamin Abrams. And Rabbi Dr. Binyamin Abrams, that's a mouthful, is a research associate professor and director of general chemistry at Boston University. He's also a doctor of theoretical chemistry. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Chana. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, you don't look too much like a professor at a university.
I get that a lot, by the way.
I'm sure that's probably one of the first things people say to you, right?
But what are the professors supposed to look like? I think.
Well, I guess not like a Hasidic Jew with a long beard, a yarmulke, the works. So how did this all come about? Like, how did you get your job interview? You want to start with that, and then we'll go back to your originals, your beginnings. But let's start with that.
Sure. Okay. It was 2008. And, getting a job was actually in the sciences was really quite difficult at the time. People didn't have money. There wasn't money for postdoctoral fellowships. And I'd been applying a lot. I was living in Crown Heights. I was married, just finishing my PhD at the time. And I thought to myself, what am I going to do for a living? Maybe I'll get a job as a Rebbe, a teacher in one of the local schools. And, we were applying to a lot of jobs, spending a lot of time at the oil, and just praying, hoping that we're going to get a job. And it was Pesach. It was Chol Hamoed Pesach. And I got back from Shachris in 770 from praying the morning prayers. And I had this email that had come into my inbox. And it was, I know you didn't apply for this job, but we have this opening for a teaching track position at Boston University, and we think you'd be great. And the rest of it is kind of history.
Wow. So when they saw you, did they still feel that you were appropriate for the job?
It was I had been living in the Crown Heights bubble for almost 2 years at that point, and I was feeling a little bit brazen, and maybe not brazen, just I am who I am. Mm-hmm. And at first they offered me an interview on a Friday. So I wrote back to them. Again, no one was getting interviews. No one was getting jobs, let alone interviews. So I got an interview. I should have been. Thank you so much. Huh? I'll be happy. Friday, no problem.
Never, sure. Yeah.
So I write back to them. I'm so excited to interview with you, but you should know that I'm a Sabbath observing Jewish person, and I don't work in the afternoons on Fridays. And so while I'd love to interview with you, it's not going to work. So they said, okay, come on Monday. And so they knew what to expect. Then I mentioned to them, if you're planning any food, make sure that you have to make sure there's a kosher restaurant. If not, my wife can pack me a sandwich. I can pack myself a sandwich, and I'll just go off on the side and eat. And they were very accommodating and very, very respectful. It was a very positive interview.
How did they know about you? Like, is it common to be offered a job just like that, or like how did they find out about you? I know you have very big credentials. You have very strong credentials, but is that still common for a university to go after someone?
I think I thank you for saying that I have strong credentials. I think they're stronger now. I don't think I had particularly strong credentials back then. I had applied for a postdoctoral fellow. This is my suspicion. I never got this confirmed. because you don't look a gift job in the mouth, and so I never got this completely confirmed. But I had applied for a postdoctoral fellowship somewhere, and somebody saw my resume lying on somebody's desk, and they just
Mhm.
decided, "Wow, this guy looks great." I think personally it's because I davened extra hard and learned a little bit more Torah,
Right.
but probably somebody found my resume in a stack of discarded resumes from jobs that just didn't exist. And what's crazy is there were so many. This teaching job had been there, but I never thought in a million years to apply without a postdoctoral fellowship. That's the normal way you do things. You get a postdoc and then you get a job. And thank God, Baruch Hashem, they invited me to come and interview.
Wow. So, it's interesting that you came with such a, strong confidence. Maybe that was what also pushed them to hire you. Sometimes we come and we think we're trying to hide who we are, but because you were so proud of who you are and you gave all those stipulations, I can't come Friday, I can only come Monday. Maybe they thought you were very sought after.
Somebody
Maybe it worked in reverse.
So I'm not going to say who because I would never embarrass somebody, but somebody. I came on Sunday. You have to understand, this is before GPS is on our phones. And
Mm,
I knew that Boston driving and traffic patterns. The thing about Boston is there are actually streets where there's intersections where it's 5 one-way streets converging at an intersection. I'm not so clear there's any way to get away from that intersection. It's nuts here.
mhm,
So I said, okay, we have to
mhm,
get there on Sunday. I'm not going to risk driving up on Monday. So we'll
mhm.
get there, and so we to see what Jewish Boston was like. And we walked around. There was a pizza shop, and we went to the pizza shop, and we went to see different like Chabad shuls and Chabad houses in the neighborhood. And I met a certain person, doesn't matter who, and they met me. I was wearing my hat. I took it off because I'm at home, but I wearing my hat and my jacket. And they looked at me and they said, "You're not going to go looking like that to your job interview, right? With the
Right.
beard and the hat." I said, "It's not hair extensions. Like there's not really much. There's not really much I can do with this. I mean, you could do the whole rolling thing up, but like I don't know.
Right.
This is who I am. I'm going to go with my hat, with my jacket, my tzitzis. Like, this is who I am. If I'm going to work here, they're gonna be getting to know me. They're gonna have to deal with me for
Right.
who I am. And it turns out, so I found out by many years later that amongst the people who interviewed me, the fact that I came dressed the way that's very clear, and they knew that this is how a Hasidic person, a Jewish person dresses, that I wasn't afraid to be who I was, actually played a huge role in me not only getting offered
Mm,
the job, but them acceding to my many requests. And so
mhm.
I think it's exactly the opposite. When a person is proud of who they are, people respect that. Or as Lord Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory used to say, people respect Jews who respect Judaism.
Mm.
And so I think
Wow.
that's important.
Wow. How long have you been there?
Oh, thank God this is 18 years. I just finished 18 years, or I'm finishing 18 years.
Wow. Incredible. And it all started off that Sunday night or that Monday when you came.
Sunday
Wow.
night, I had a barbecue with Rabbi Posner, who's the shliach to Boston University. And then Monday morning was that interview. It was the whole day. Academic interviews are a whole day that you meet with different people. Then there's a meal in between. They say it's because they want to make sure that you look like a normal person when you're in a social setting. But I think it's just to convince faculty that, they should be involved in the interview process. You get a free lunch. So
Right.
maybe both have some modicum of truth to them.
Right, right. And what are some of the reactions of your students when they come into your chemistry class and see this Orthodox Hasidic Jew?
So, I mean, not all of them realize that I'm Jewish. There's a famous story. I was driving my moped down Commonwealth Avenue one summer, and maybe 12 years ago, and an incoming student snaps a photo of me riding my moped with a hat and the beard, no brim on the helmet, but with the helmet and everything, and the beard's flying in the wind. And they post on Facebook, so excited to be coming to Boston University. Where else are you going to find an Amish person riding a moped? Right. And then the conversation on Facebook ensued. I don't think the Amish are allowed to ride a moped. Stop telling the Amish what they are and aren't allowed to do. And finally, the last person was like, I think he's our chemistry professor, and I think he's Jewish.
Oh, wow.
During that interview, I walked into they give me a tour. One of the places we went is one of the teaching labs, and I walk in, and this from across the lab, I couldn't even see where it's coming from. I just heard a bellowing. This is who they're interviewing. Baruch Hashem. Thank God.
Whoa.
So,
Whoa.
so some students probably know, some students probably don't know. Every once in a while you have the more observant Jewish students who kind of get it. They see, I had one student years ago comes up to me this time of year, right around graduation time, and said, "Professor Abrams, you never met me, but I was in your class 4 years ago." It's a large class. I teach about 800 students every fall. I'm in charge of a course that teaches 800 students. My section has 250 students. It's a big class.
Wow.
If you want to get to know me, I like to feel that I'm approachable, but if not, it's kind of
It's a
difficult.
long
So,
class, right?
oh yeah, I mean, I almost give myself permission not to remember people, because it's just
Right.
it's an they have 4 professors. I have 800 students. It's an
100%.
order,
Wow.
yeah, a couple orders of magnitude difference. So the student comes up to me right around graduation, a keepa, and comes up to me and says, "You don't remember
Hmm.
me, but I was in your class, and I came to college, and I thought to myself, I'm pre-med, I'm going to medical school, I want to be a big shot surgeon." I thought to myself, there's absolutely no way that I'm going to be able to keep doing this whole Shabbat and kosher thing while during this 12-year, however many years it is, process. And so the night before classes began, I turned to Hashem, which, by the way, tells you already the end of the story when this is the beginning of the story. I turned to Hashem and I said to him, I said, "Listen, I just don't see how it's possible. So until such time as I get my medical degree, I'm giving myself permission to just like not care. Forget
Hmm.
Shabbos, forget kosher. You have until tomorrow at lunchtime to convince me otherwise, that otherwise I'm going and eating non-kosher food for the first time in my life." So he
Hmm.
says, I walked in to my first college class, and who is standing there in front of the class? You. I, I looked up at Hashem and I said, "Well played, God. Well played."
That's incredible.
It was a very heartwarming story.
It's incredible. It's incredible because also, just by the fact of it that he looked at you, just by you being where you are and being who you are, where you are, you're making such an impact, on people.
I think that's important to realize. I think, we always focus on, oh, did I interact with somebody? And that's important, right? We obviously have to interact with people, say kind things to people, help people. But sometimes just being who you are and being proud of who you are has a huge, if not direct, but indirect impact on those around you. And that was a huge
Mhm.
lesson for me. And of course, I kind of beat myself up a little bit. I said, "How is it possible that you're in my class for a whole year or a semester, a year, whatever it was? I didn't figure out that you were there."
Right.
And so, okay, I felt I was happy, but I was also a little bit dejected by the whole story.
Do you ever, like, have questions from your students about Judaism, or is it strictly a chemistry relationship?
I think you have to understand, chemistry is not necessarily the most approachable of subjects.
Mhm.
I always say chemistry can be hard and boring, or hard and fun. And I try to make it hard and fun, but
Mhm.
I'm not trying to make it hard. It just is what it is. Class
Mhm.
time is only for chemistry. All Judaism that happens in the class is just me by osmosis appearing who I am. I do have to say, even though I'm very careful to try to keep my English to English in class, after the whole Jewish holiday season at the beginning of the year, after a month of literally spending pretty
Mhm.
much half my time in synagogue and prayer and family, Yiddishisms absolutely start to creep out, and
Mhm.
I begin to lose my English vocabulary a little bit, to the to the point where students do sometimes comment about it. It's like so interesting. It's like Dr. Jekyll and Professor Hyde. It's very,
Right.
very interesting here. But no, in class, I mean,
Mhm.
they're paying a lot of money to come and learn
Mhm.
chemistry, and I'm not going to steal from them by
Sure.
talking about Judaism. However, in my office hours, free, whenever anyone wants to talk about, I'm an open book, happy to chat about anything. You walk into my office, you have chemistry textbooks on one side, you have Sfarim, Jewish books on the other side, big picture of the Rebbe, tefillin, Shabbos candles, whatever you want.
And how do you bring these 2 worlds together so seamlessly?
I dispute the premise of the question. Who says that the two worlds
Two worlds.
aren't aren't intrinsically one? There was
Hmm.
a famous story of Dr. Green of blessed memory. He was an exobiologist who worked for NASA for the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And at one point, this is what I heard, that he had written to the Rebbe. He had heard that you shouldn't have Jewish books, Torah books, and science books on the same bookshelf.
Hmm.
And the Rebbe's response was, they both come from the same place.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I heard that 20 years ago when I first started coming around in the Jewish world, and that was a huge thing. I thought to myself, yeah, why shouldn't they be?
Hmm.
Or Planck
Wow.
used to say, the famous physicist said that one needs both. We need science as a tool of exploration, and we need religion as a guide to action. You need
Hmm.
both.
Hmm. Interesting. I mean, I'm looking behind you at your many, many books on your bookshelves, which are so orderly there and so organized. It looks like they're all Jewish books from what I can see.
You caught me at home today.
Okay.
This is part of my home library. I have a book problem. And they say the first step in getting help is acknowledging you have a problem.
Um,
I have a book problem. When I was living in Crown Heights, I used to live down the street from Kahus, the Chabad publishing house. And every day on the way home, I would stop in and buy some books. They actually threatened to stage an intervention because they thought, I mean, they knew I'm a grad student. They knew I couldn't possibly have money. Like, why am I buying so many books? Love Svarim, love learning. Um, you know,
I should put you in touch with my husband if you overcame this this problem.
I have yet to we moved into a home a couple of years ago. There's still Svarim in boxes because there's
I
literally
can
no place
imagine.
to put
Wow.
them.
Right.
It's kind of problematic. There's a story about Professor Bloch, who was a philosophy professor. The Rebbe encouraged him to stay in philosophy and become a world expert on Aristotle. And I heard a story once that a student was in his sukkah during the holiday of Sukkot and was asking him, I'm going to go to grad school, and which philosophy should I study in grad school, Professor Bloch? Should I study Aristotle, Socrates? And Professor Bloch said, you should learn Chassidus. Chassidic thought is better. And the guy kind of laughed it off, but then he went to the bathroom and he realized that in all of Professor Bloch's house, all the bookcases were Torah books. Where were
Mm.
all the philosophy textbooks? Were in his bathroom. Now, I'm not going to say
Interesting.
that my chemistry textbooks are in my office, and these days
Right.
everything's PDF anyway, so you don't really need to have it.
Right.
But yeah,
Is that what you want for your children as well?
to have philosophy textbooks in
Both
their bathroom. I mean,
or
whatever.
no, or to have both worlds.
I think that they are in both worlds. I think my oldest Bli Ayin Hara is right now. She's 17 years old, and she's going to try to figure out what she wants to do, which is great. And we're very supportive of her having the future that she wants. I think that everybody has some sort of balance of the two. Even those Chabad rabbis and rebbitzins that go out and become shluchim of the Rebbe, they do understand a lot about the world, whether it's accounting or U.S. tax
Mhm.
law
Mhm.
or how to get good grants, just how to
Mhm.
talk to people. I think that in this day and age, there is a balance.
Mhm.
But if you ask me what's the priority is learning Torah. I think that in addition to the fact that spiritually speaking, it's what really gives us our strength as people. It's a feeding and fueling the soul. If you're asking if I put my chemistry professor hat on, I'll tell you it teaches the critical thinking and information literacy skills that will make somebody successful in any aspect of their life in any career that they choose. The
Mhm.
students who come to university with strong critical thinking skills, and again, you can tell that those who went to yeshiva for a little while, that they have those in spades, are so much more successful. Content knowledge you can build over time. But learning how to think and developing as a thinking person and as a moral person and as a spiritual person, that's what Torah gives you, and that you need before you can go into any career that you might want to go into. And so I encourage, anytime I speak to a high school student, if they haven't spent any time in yeshiva, whether it's a week, a month, a summer, or a year before they go to college, it's the best thing that they could ever do to really get that foundation. And then go get a
Mhm.
career. Everyone needs to have you got to pay your bills.
Mhm. Well, certain sciences I would think, contradict the idea of God being in our world. Does chemistry?
So the Pew Research Center has done numerous studies on this. The most recent one showed that 75% of physicists and chemists have a belief in God or are religious people. And so I don't
Mhm.
know that the facts actually bear out that presumption. I'm sure that there
Mhm.
are individuals, and certainly outspoken ones, who feel that that's not the case. But as long ago as Newton and Pascal, and as recently as Francis Collins and Brian Keating, and the giants of science and math and STEM, there's
Mhm.
always been a large number, in fact, the majority, who have not only not seen a contradiction, they've seen a beautiful congruence between them.
Mhm. So you mean science can lead you to God?
I think that it certainly can't lead you away.
Mhm.
There's an old, it might be apocryphal, but there's a quote that people often quote, which is that the first sip from the chalice of science could make somebody an atheist, but if you drink to the bottom of the cup, God is waiting. And I think that that's
Mhm.
true. I once heard in the name of the Rebbe that the Rebbe said if somebody has questions about science and Torah, one of two things: either they don't know enough science, or they don't know enough Torah, or potentially both.
Mhm. Did you ever have questions when you were studying in your field of study? Did you have questions about God or how it if it contradicts with Torah?
I think so. Growing up, I didn't grow up observant, right? I mean, I know it's hard to believe that with a beard this luxurious, but this is what I call a great loss, late onset spirituality. I was in grad school. I was 24. I had been studying science for years before I even really considered Judaism and its role in my life. I did grow up very much in a Jewish home in Canada. I grew up in Montreal, Canada, and we knew
Oh,
we were
nice.
Jewish. We were
I'm from
proud to be.
Canada. I'm from Toronto. Okay, so I know Montreal's
Exactly
right around the corner, right? So you were
right.
proud to be a Jew, but
Absolutely. And we played hide the bread for 8 days a
Mhm.
year, and
Mhm.
we went to shul, went to synagogue on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We parked respectfully 2 blocks away, as is the custom. But you know, funny. My grandfather all of a sudden used to park 3 blocks away. So then my parents parked 2 blocks away. So thank God that I did tshuva and I started being more observant, or my kids would literally drive their kid into the sanctuary building. I'm just all right. It would be a huge problem. So I mean, we always knew we were Jewish, but like what role that played in my life, I didn't really see a role for Judaism in my life. And part of it was as I don't think I didn't really learn deep ideas about Judaism. Facts we knew,
Mhm.
right? Hanukkah,
Mhm.
Purim, Pesach. We knew facts about Judaism.
So you knew the history of it?
Yeah. Jewish history was a very big element of that education. We learned to read and read Ivrit and to speak
Mm.
Ivrit, but we didn't. Everyone knew these things. Forgot all of it by the time that it was
Mhm.
actually practically useful in my life, and had to relearn that. Um, but as far as what role they would play, there was that wasn't something that really it just didn't have a role in my
Mhm.
life. And so when I came to start learning more about Judaism, I already had what I would consider to be a fairly strong scientific background. So
Mhm.
at that point, let's say before and after. Before, the big question was, and I always believed in God, which is very weird. But I mean, I don't know what I considered believing in God. Who knows what that really was? But the idea that this was somehow accidental, I think De Sotoy would say it's more of this idea of causality, the idea
Mhm.
that the existence of the universe is the answer to why should there be something rather than nothing. And then at minimum, that's God. In fact, that's the first thing the Rambam says. The first thing Maimonides says in his Sefer Halachas, in his book of Jewish laws, is like, hey, everyone slow down. Before we get into the laws, just realize that everything happens through the laws of causality. And again, as a theoretical chemist, a chemical physicist, was speaking to me. It's like there's a cause for everything. And so the universe being an effect has a cause, and we define that cause. Rambam says, Maimonides says, we define that cause as God. It's like, oh. So for me, like the idea that there
But what
was...
caused God? That's not really addressed.
So Rambam says a primordial cause. It says the Rambam defines God as a primordial cause, a cause that has no cause, the first cause, if you will. But the idea that this should all have come from somewhere,
just from right,
not
that it was an accident that just happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at the incredible biodiversity, and if you look at the incredible way in which the universe functions, it's a moment of awe. I think Robert Boyle, one of the first real chemists, if you can even say that, I'm talking 400 years ago, one of the first real chemists said that when I look at all of the amazing science, I'm paraphrasing the first part, I'm forced to exclaim with the psalmist, with King David, how manifold are thy creations, O Lord, in wisdom hast thou created them all. Rabu ma'asecha, Hashem kulam b'chokhmah asisa. In other words, like there is this idea of being in awe of the universe and of the magnitude thereof. So I think, it's not that I didn't question whether or not there was some sort of God or greater purpose or creator or I never questioned that. I just saw no room in my life, no reason to create room in my life for any kind of
connection, no personal connection to you.
Yeah, it wasn't personal. Exactly. It's like, this whole thing isn't personal. We make this whole universe and like enjoy. So then when you start learning about it, yeah, I do. I remember the exact questions I have. Honestly, I don't remember what I had for lunch 2 days ago, let alone what questions I had 20 years ago. But what I will say is this: what I came to realize was, and this I think was very helpful, when I started to realize, and I looked at what scientists said, that some of the biggest scientists in all of human history, people that I looked up to, believed in God. I'm like, wow, okay, this, I don't have to have all the answers. People smarter than me seem to also be on the same page. And then
But don't you also have people smarter than you that don't believe in God? Like, didn't you also have great scientists that didn't?
Most people are smarter than me, thank God. But
I'm sure not. Yeah.
But the idea that there should be some objective, completely compelling proof, this didn't exist. Not enough to convince the greatest minds of the 19th, 20th, and even modern time centuries. And then I learned that there were rabbis that were also scientists, like Rambam, Maimonides, that I mentioned a couple of times before, found out that he was a medical doctor as well. He taught himself medicine and became the chief medical officer of the Egyptian Empire. He was the chief medical officer for the Sultan of Egypt. And I thought to myself, I wonder what his mother was most proud of. That he was literally the leading rabbi of his generation and generations to come. They said from Moses to Moses, Maimonides' name is Moses, there was no one but like Moses, which is a complete tautology. My mother's an English teacher, so I was like, okay, that's, I don't know if we should be making tautologies, but like he was the biggest rabbi and he was a medical. Which one was she more proud of? I don't want to know the answer to that.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Wow.
And then I found out that the Lubavitcher Rebbe, before he became the leader of the Chabad movement, not only went to college, but got an undergraduate degree in engineering from University of Berlin, and then an advanced degree in mathematics in Paris. And then when he came to the US, he was working for the United States military at the Brooklyn Navy Yard doing electrical engineering. I thought to myself, okay, if the leading rabbi in the world has absolutely no problem with science and Torah, and some of the leading scientists in the world have no problem with science and Torah, whatever questions there are, thank God, there should always be questions. Asking good questions is the hallmark of somebody who's thinking, and I think it's great. But clearly there's enough evidence both in support of Torah and in support of its congruence with the scientific world. And I just put it aside and just kept learning Torah.
Interesting. So you didn't feel like you needed to find the solutions, or that you needed to find the way. You just knew that there was a path of congruence.
Well, I think that one thing that's incredible, I've learned since, if you learn the discourses of the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, in a lot of his discourses, he talks about the interplay between the physical and the spiritual worlds, the world that we live in, and the spiritual essence that brings it into existence. And one of the things that's really exciting there is that the real congruence and juxtaposition of these two things, while we can taste a little bit of it now, the idea that something which is truly beyond human interaction, just because we're not going to be able to actually engage with it now. When Mashiach comes, then we will have not only an interaction, not only an engagement, but a complete revelation of it. But until then, the most we can do is live in this world. And through engaging in this world, we actually get a sense for what the essence wanted, the essence of godliness wanted from the outset. So to me, it was more of a realization that we're not going to be able to answer these questions because it's answering questions that are beyond answering. It's like 5% of the universe is actually made up of things that we can engage with and understand. This is a scientific statement, not a spiritual
5%.
one. Yeah, 5%.
Wow.
The regular matter and energy in the universe that we engage with is about 5% of the universe. The other 95% is dark matter and dark energy. And they're called dark because literally we know that they're there. Dark matter because it adds inertia, weight to the galaxies, so they spin and move slower than they probably should if normal matter were the only matter. And dark energy, we think, is responsible for the expansion of the universe. 68% of the universe is dark energy. There's no way to actually, we can barely detect it, let alone understand it. Dark matter, same thing. And so this idea that we should have the ability to answer all questions is, I think, the biggest red herring in all of science. I honestly play a game of spiritual rope-a-dope with my students. It's a boxing term for anyone who's not aware. The whole year in chemistry, it's like, oh, you have this phenomenon. We can explain it with X. Or this phenomenon, we can explain it with Y. This thing that you saw, we can explain it with Z. Z, because I'm Canadian. And yeah, my students like Z. And then we finally get to the concept of entropy, the second law of thermodynamics, that over time, all things that happen lead to an increase in entropy, which is possibilities. The best definition of entropy is not disorder or chaos, it's possibilities. An increase in the possibilities of the universe. And so then a student inevitably, happened a month ago, it's every year, always happens. Student raises their hand and says, Professor Abrams, why does the universe always increase in possibilities? And I give a big smile every year and I say, this is beyond our ability to answer. We've just hit metaphysics. And what you have to realize is some of the things that we know about the universe are purely empirical. We know them to be true because we've observed them to be true. And to say that they must have been true is a logical fallacy, post hoc ergo propter hoc. It's a logical fallacy because it's true. It must have been true always. We're at the point where we know what is true, at least according to our best understanding now. Why? Above my pay grade. There's a religion class across the street. And I think that's an important thing to remember.
Wow. I guess also the more you know you don't know, or the more you know that you can't know.
Oh,
Like
that's
you said,
yeah, that was like my first biochemistry. The first time I ever went to a biochemistry seminar, a symposium. And because I thought I was going to be a biochemistry major. And then like this amazing scientist, she's talking about how they had made this, there was this gene and they thought that it makes a protein that regulates apoptosis, cell death. And they're going to knock it out. And then the cell's going to like die real fast. And then what happened was they did knock it out and they made a mutant, but now the cell lived 10 times longer than ever before because the same
Mhm.
protein that causes cell death here actually is in another part of the biochemistry pathway. It actually makes the cell live even longer. I'm like, oh my God, this is way too complicated. Too many atoms, too many molecules. I'm going to stick to like theoretical chemistry, which is a weird thing to say. But
Right.
but yeah, I think that anybody who studies this stuff must be in awe of how
Mhm.
immense and crazy it is.
Mhm. Wow, incredible. So I'm curious to know how you got from this boy that knew about Judaism but didn't really practice any of it, how you got from there to where you are today.
Well, it's a long story. So how long do we have? I'll
We
tell
still have some time.
I'll tell you the somewhat abridged version, and it comes down to this. I'm sitting in my apartment on Second Avenue and 11th Street in Manhattan, and it was a winter day, and I get a call from a friend of mine. We had been friends since undergrad. He was getting his PhD. I was getting my bachelor's degree, and he says, "I had a dream about you." To
Mm,
which I immediately hung up the phone,
mm.
and he called me back. He says, "Stop hanging up on me," because anytime he would have these dreams, he would just he there was an ask at the end of it. You know what I mean? It's like I had a dream
Mhm.
about you, so you have to do something. And even though he lived in California at the time, and I was in New York, I mean, it wasn't going to end. He's like, "You need to go talk to your rabbi." I said to him, "What are you talking about? You've known me for over a decade. When have you ever known me to talk to a rabbi?" And famous last words, "I wouldn't even know where to find a rabbi here in New York," which, there's like 17 Chabad houses in that area of Manhattan. And, every Friday, these rabbinical interns, these Bachrim, come and like put on film with people. This is the craziest part of the story. I was there for 3 years. Not once had anyone ever asked me to put on tefillin. I guess I didn't look Jewish enough.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
so I mean, where am I going to even find a rabbi? By the way, just a little tangent. After I had already started putting on tefillin, so now I started noticing the rabbinical interns who are in the park asking people to put on tefillin.
Right.
So I walked past them. Again, I still wasn't wearing. Maybe I was wearing like a cap, and I don't think I was wearing tzitzis yet. And even if I was, they were tucked in, so I did not look recognizably Jewish. So I walked past them again, nothing. I'm like, oh, they mustn't
Really?
have noticed me. So I made a loop on the park, and I walked past them again, and they again did not
Did
engage.
not notice, really?
Third time I passed them, said nothing. I turned to them. I said, "You're not going to ask me if I want to put on tefillin? Do you want to put on tefillin? I already put on tefillin today." I must have traumatized these poor Mendis. I'm assuming their name was Mendy, but
Right.
I must have traumatized them. I feel
Mm.
terrible in retrospect that I did this, but it's like, how could you not have asked me? If you would have asked me 3 years ago, I could have started doing that. Anyways, you know,
Wow.
Baruch Hashem, thank God, the Abel Shafir the Welt, God runs the world. Everything happens in the right time. So
Mm.
this guy's like, "You got to go talk to your rabbi." I'm like, "I don't have a rabbi." And I'm like trying to figure out what I'm going to do to placate my friend who I care about and I, want to
So he
make him
had a
happy.
dream about you that you needed to see a rabbi.
I need to talk to my rabbi.
Right.
So he says, "You need to reconnect with your Jewish roots." I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
doing the math. It's winter. Passover's coming up. I'll go to a Passover Seder. I had been promising, for years. My grandmother, God rest her soul, had been asking me to go to Seders, and her cousin lived in New Jersey, and I'd been promising to go. And
Mm.
anyways, TLDR, they said yeah, so I'm going to go to this Seder. So he's like, perfect. This is exactly what I want. So I called up my cousin, second cousin, third cousin. We have small families, so even third cousins
Mhm.
4 times removed as cousins. So so I call him up. I'm coming. They're like, perfect. We'll see you in a couple of months. Done. A week before, not even a week, 5 days before Pesach, on the 10th of Nisan, which is I didn't know at the time, but my birthday, my Jewish birthday. I'm
Mhm.
sitting in my apartment. They call me up. They're like, "We're canceling the Seder. We're not feeling well. It's not going to work out." I'm like,
Mm.
now what? I promised I'm going to the Seder. I have to figure it out. So I start looking online. I'm like, public Seders in Manhattan, hundreds of dollars.
Mm.
Not interested. I emailed the Hillel at NYU. I'm at NYU. I'm in grad school. I'm coming to your Seder. They're like, sorry, we're all full. Like
Wow.
literally. Yeah. Like I
Wow.
tried everything. And so I'm sitting there. Now it's the nighttime already, feeling a little bit, dejected. What am I going to do? I had promised, but I'm not going to spend hundreds of dollars to make my friend happy.
Hmm.
So I'm done. It's nighttime. Now, if anyone's keeping track, it's the 11th of Nisan, the Rebbe's birthday. I get an email from Chabad at New York University
Wow.
inviting me to their Pesach Seder. And in this email were two words that would forever change my life. Totally free. Not
Wow.
just free, but like totally free. It's
Free.
exactly what I had wanted to pay for this Seder. Which is, yeah. So I decided to go. I showed up early. I thought I was showing up on time. Maybe I guess I didn't RSVP, so I didn't get the updated email that said that the time was wrong in the first email. I show up. One of the rabbinic interns is covering folding tables with aluminum foil. I'm like, this is interesting. And another guy's still wearing tefillin. I knew what tefillin was, but I'm like, isn't it little late? Anyway, so I get there. They put me to work right away. I start opening up wine bottles, and the Seder was like really snappy. It was 45 minutes from wine to brisket. With all the matzah and the mar in between, but like everybody, it was like we have a schedule. Let's keep going. And the rabbi didn't give any Dvar Torahs until everybody was just like sitting down to eat the meal, which I thought was brilliant, right? It's because everyone's
Right.
occupied. The room's silent. There was like 80, 100 people in there. It was fairly large. Came to find out later, this actually a tiny fraction of his crowd. His normal crowd tends to be more connected or more traditional. And so they would go home for Pesach. And this is like the people who didn't go home for Pesach. So it was a much smaller crowd. And so he gets up on a chair and tells a famous parable whose takeaway message is that every single mitzvah amongst the 613 mitzvahs is precious to Hashem like a diamond. And he ends it by saying, so every mitzvah you do has value. So if you're not doing any mitzvahs, and he never said it like this before. He and I are very close now. And I've asked him, is this how you always would end this story? He says, no, the language I chose, I don't know why I chose it. God runs the world. He says, if you're not doing any mitzvahs, why not do an experiment? And I'm thinking to myself, he's talking straight to me. I'm a scientist. He's literally talking at me. He's like, see how it goes. Pick a mitzvah, collect some data, do it for a few weeks. If you don't like it, you can stop. I don't actually believe he meant the whole, he didn't intend that people should stop, but see how it goes. And if you like it, keep doing it. Maybe even take on another one. And even if you never do, that one mitzvah has intrinsic value. And in that moment, I learned two incredible things. What was I afraid of? Data are objective. They're also plural, for the record. So data are objective. And so what am I afraid of? I'm a scientist. I'll collect the data and see how it goes. And two, all those years going to synagogue, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, a little bit of, Hebrew school, never once had anyone bothered to explain that a mitzvah, which literally means mitzvah, it means commandment, but what truly means is tzav tzavachibur, connection. It's a connection point between a person and Hashem. And that when you connect in that way, it has intrinsic value, irrespective of anything else you do. And every mitzvah has value. It's akin to collecting diamonds. Would somebody say, if somebody offered you a diamond, you're like, no. If you don't give me 613 of them, I'm not interested in the one. That's insanity. You'll take the diamond. It has value, precious value. And so I decided right then and there, I'm going to start putting on tefillin. My grandfather of blessed memory had bought me tefillin when I was 13, took me out of school, took me to the synagogue, got me an aliyah, put tefillin, gave me a thimbleful of Crown Royal rye, and then sent me back to school. And for 11 years, those tefillin sat in my sock and underwear drawer. I brought them he passed away very soon after this, and they were very precious to me. So I literally carried them with me everywhere I went, but I never put them on. I put them on once. And
Mm.
so I decided right then and there that I'm going to start putting on tefillin. And the crazy part is, I remember one of the things I had heard once when I was growing up in one of those like Yom Kippur sermons is that we don't put on tefillin on Shabbat, on the holidays. So I'd have to wait till after Pesach to put it on. And so what's crazy is I knew when you don't put on tefillin, but I didn't know why a person should
Right.
bother doing it. So I started doing an experiment. Baruch Hashem, I'm still collecting those experimental data. I can tell you to the date, it is now 19 years and 5 weeks that I've been putting on tefillin.
Wow. Wow. So you started putting on tefillin, and how did that make you feel?
Honestly, at the beginning, very frustrated because if you don't know how to put the
Right. Yeah.
if you don't if, and this is before there was YouTube where you could watch a quick tutorial
Mhm.
videos. There was no Snapchat, there was no TikTok, there was no YouTube. So I'm like looking at static pictures on some random website on Yahoo, and it's like it was a little bit it was a struggle at
Mm.
first, but it turned out okay. By a few days in, I got it down pat to the point where then later I ran into one of those rabbinic interns from the Seder in Washington Square Park on a Friday, and he recognized me. He's like, "Oh, you were at the Seder. Why don't you come put on tefillin?" I'm like, "I already put on tefillin today." So he's like, "Oh, it'll only take a few minutes." He's I'm like,
Right.
but I already put on tefillin today. I could do it in a minute. Like he's negotiating. Like
Right.
we could walk while you do it. I'm like, listen, buddy. I mean, I don't know if you can do it twice in one day, but it's like, what do you mean you put it on? Like, well, the rabbi, he said that every mitzvah is valuable. So I'm like, I'm going to do it. He's like, whoa, such an,
Wow.
and he was blown away. And we went to, we actually went to a bar on McDougal Street and we got a l'chaim together. And he's like, what are you doing tonight? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, why don't you come for Shabbat dinner? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, it's free. I'm like, oh, so there you go.
And is that how one thing led to another?
Yeah. And what's amazing about the Shabbat dinner was, so Rabbi Korn and Rebbitzin Korn, who are the co-directors of Chabad at New York University or Bowery, Chabad at the Bowery in Manhattan.
I
There
interviewed
must,
Mrs. Corn, Sarah Corn. Yes, she's an incredible story as well.
oh, their story
Yeah.
actually is incredible. Mine makes a lot
Yeah.
more sense. Theirs is, both of them are just incredible. But so so if you know anything about their Chabad, even back then when it was much smaller, Friday night dinner, 300 people in this
Oh, wow.
tiny, tiny cramped basement room and standing room only. And I didn't like understand it. I didn't pay attention, but I came to realize over the months that followed, Rabbi Korn would get up and he would make kiddush. And then he would immediately drink another cup of wine and eat a little bit of crackers and make an after blessing. And then he would go and spend a couple of hours talking to the 300 people in that room, one
Mhm.
on one or one
Mhm.
on small group.
Mhm.
And his wife would put a plate of food aside for him in the back
Mhm.
office above the fridge so that at 1 o'clock in the morning or midnight or
Mhm.
whenever the students left, then he could go and make for himself a meal. Because just imagine there's so little time to have that kind of deep interaction
Mhm.
with people. What are you going to do? I'm going to sit here and I'm going to spend the time eating. And he would just interact one. And that night he came and he started chatting with me. And I was just blown away by the kindness and the attention. And I thought to myself, this is definitely not the Judaism I grew up with. And so he invited me to come back. I think he offered me an aliyah if I came to shul in the morning. I don't know, over the weeks that would follow, we got closer. I remember at one point during the week, he and I had gone out for drinks. He's like, do you like scotch and cigars? So I remember thinking to myself, I mean, I like scotch and cigars, but you're a rabbi. He's like, yeah, well, let's go ahead and get a scotch and a cigar. And so we went to like my favorite little dive bar on First Avenue between Second and Third, and we got a couple of scotches. And then afterwards, we went and sat the park across the street, and we smoked these cigars. And I remember looking at him and thinking to myself, if a rabbi can drink scotch and cigars, maybe what I thought Judaism was is
Mhm.
wholly inaccurate. And
Mhm.
I really, it was okay, the idea from the Rebbe that he shared about the preciousness of every single mitzvah definitely opened up the pathway. But definitely, it helped to realize that rabbis are people too, and
Mhm.
we're human beings. And Judaism, it's about having a great life and being a good person and just loving life. And so it was transformative.
Wow, incredible. Really incredible. What an incredible story. And I guess one thing led to another, and then you started to learn more, and you went to yeshiva. I'm assuming that that's what.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I started to learn more, but I was in grad
Right,
school, and
right.
so there's no taking a year off in grad
Mhm.
school. Like
For
that's not
sure.
so. I remember speaking with Rabbi Goldberg. He's the dean, the Rosh Yeshiva of Hadar Torah, the first yeshiva for people who didn't grow up
Mhm,
observant. It's in Crown Heights, and I remember sitting with him. I went to a yeshiva vacation. It's like a 10-day experience. I remember talking to him. I said, I mean, I'm loving Torah learning. I want to do more of it. Like, what should I do? Like, almost to the point of maybe I never verbalized, should I like drop out of grad school? But like deep in the back of my mind, I'm like, this Torah is where it's at. Maybe I should just learn more
mhm,
Torah. And he said, before you think anything else, the Lubavitcher Rebbe would never in a million years let you drop out of a
mhm,
graduate program.
mhm,
He told me the story of Dr. Block that I mentioned earlier. He said that not only did the Rebbe encourage him to persist, Dr. Block and Dr. Hanoka, both of these individuals to persist, but to become experts in their field. He said, you'll do more for the Jewish people with 3 letters after your name than you'll
mhm,
do with rabbi in front of your name.
mhm,
And but he said something that also I think really changed my life. He said, but I promise that if you daven at length and learn more, you will certainly be successful. He said, "Vaday shetatzliach."
mhm,
You'll certainly be successful. I think that's important. It's an important thing to remember that Hashem runs the world, and so yeah, we have to focus on our spiritual health, right? I always talk about 3 healths. There's our physical health, our mental health, and our spiritual health, and we need to focus on all 3. And when
mhm,
all 3 are working properly, then then our potential is limitless. And so that Rabbi Goldberg really had a huge impact. So I kept, yeah, like you said, I kept learning and learning and learning.
mhm,
Um, when I moved to Crown Heights, I lived across the street from that yeshiva, and I would do like a half a day yeshiva, half a day grad school.
mhm,
And well, more like half a day yeshiva and a full day grad school, and I just didn't sleep. But
mhm,
doesn't matter,
mhm.
right? I mean, and
Uh-oh.
then and yeah, 1, 2, skip a few, and then you eventually,
Incredible.
yeah.
Incredible. What an incredible story. I'm wondering if the boy who the friend of yours who told you about the dream, where is he at now?
I mean, last time I checked, he's still living in Northern California, having a good time.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. I'm also wondering, in your experiences, I mean, after colleges and universities have become such a hotbed of anti-Semitism, have you experienced that as a Hasidic or as an obviously Hasidic Jew?
It's a great question. Listen, I'm going to say for the record, thank God Almighty, I have not experienced a tremendous amount of overt anti-Jewish hatred, anti-Semitism. Um, Part of it is that our campus is certainly not a hotbed of it. I mean, is some of it? Sure, it's not as much as some of the other universities in Boston. But I'll say I think of the experiences that I've had that you might call anti-Semitic. I remember one time I was walking down the street and somebody, this is years ago, many years ago, and yelled "Free Palestine" at me.
Mhm,
So I went right up to him, and everyone took out their phones and they're starting to record. And everyone assumed that I was going to get livid or I was going to get animated. I just said to the guy in the same tone I'm using right now, I said, "Sir, I'm a professor at this university. In fact, my office is right there. If you'd like to have a conversation, I'd love for you to come back to my office. I'll make you a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, whatever you'd like,
mhm,
and we can have a nice conversation. But I don't think yelling at people on the street is an appropriate or particularly effective form of rhetoric."
mhm,
And the guy apologized profusely.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
I think part of it is, on a one-on-one, it's how we interact with people. My students, thank God, I think that they know that I care about them. They know that I care about their success. My entire research is how people is on how people learn. I moved into education research about a decade
Mhm.
ago, a little more. How people learn, how people understand and learn about things that the eyes can't see, which I think is
Hmm.
both an interesting question in
Fascinating.
science, but
Yeah.
it's also interesting in Chassidus as well. So it's something very interesting to me. And then also how to improve outcomes in chemistry for all students, and especially for students who come from historically marginalized or systematically excluded groups.
Hmm.
And so I think my students know how much I deeply care about each and every one of their success. And I think when
Hmm.
people know that you care about them, they care about you,
Hmm.
right? They say
That's a
that
good point.
love is like a reflected surface of the water. When you smile in the water, you get a smiling face back. I think that
Hmm.
that's you get what you put out there in the world. So I think that
Hmm.
that's part of it. I mean, yeah, last year, as I was coming out of the parking garage, there was a group of people standing around. They were chanting, again, not at me. It was not directed at me, and presumably they were chanting before I walked through the lobby of the building of the parking garage, and presumably they kept going afterwards. I remember one of the administrators came up to me and says, "Are you offended? Do you want me to get rid of them?" I said, "Listen, I firmly believe in their right to freedom of expression.
Hmm.
I'm an ardent believer in the First Amendment. They're not calling for violence. They're not hurting me. I vehemently disagree with absolutely everything that they are saying. I think they are historically and emotionally misguided,
Hmm.
but I'll defend their right to say it, even though I don't like
Hmm.
what they're saying." Thank God I haven't, one time somebody put something anti Semitic in a teaching evaluation. It was anonymous. Okay.
Hmm.
They probably didn't like their grade in my class and they were angry.
Hmm. Hmm.
But thank God,
Right.
no, I haven't experienced nearly as much as some other people have.
Hmm. What made you switch your field of interest to more educational? Um, what did you call it? Educational.
Discipline based educational research.
Right. Right.
It's a
Okay.
mouthful.
Right.
So it's there's a lot of really great people doing a lot of theoretical chemistry, which I enjoy tremendously, and but I've always loved teaching. Even when I was a kid, my first job
Mhm.
was as a kayaking instructor at a summer camp. I love teaching, and I was doing more of it in college and in grad school. In grad school, I liked the teaching more than I liked the research, and I always thought the research was in service to, like, okay, it means that I can get a job teaching. I'll just do some research, but then I came to realize that there's an old saying that the plural of anecdote is not data.
Mhm.
And so, and no matter how well we feel we're doing as teachers, if we don't assess it, if we don't look at the fruits of our work, how do we know that what we're doing is good? And so I became really interested in assessment strategies. And then you're like, okay, wow, so now I can maybe make changes. And so
Mm.
I think it was a very natural progression.
Interesting. What would you like our viewers to get from this? What message would you like them to get from this interview?
Oh my, oh my, that's a you couldn't have prepared a guy for that question. All right. um okay, I'm gonna list one. If you are not learning Torah with it's so easy. There's classes on Chabad.org. There's Torah Cafe. There's your local. If you don't live in a town that has a local Chabad house, I promise you, all the towns around where you live do have one. And if the rabbi there doesn't want to learn with you, just email me and I'll give them a hard time. I'm kidding. Like somebody would love to sit down and learn this stuff with you, because I'll tell you, it's really, rolling back the corner and seeing underneath the surface to the secrets of the universe is both inspiring, mentally and emotionally, health making. I cannot endorse it any more strongly than that.
Mm.
You got learning is, and you can do it anywhere. You can put it on in the car. I listen to Talmud when I'm driving in the car. I tried
Mhm.
learning to Hasidus when I was driving in the car, but I got so wrapped up in the ideas that I stopped paying attention to the road. I'm like, okay, that's bad. That's bad. Don't do that. Okay, we'll listen to like Jewish law. That's a little bit
Right.
more, cut and dry,
Grounded.
less
Right.
esoteric, more ground. But sometimes there's like some of these big ideas there. I'm like, okay, pause. I'll wait till I get to a red light till I hit play again. Then sometimes I have to wait till the car behind me honks, and then and then I keep. I'm sorry, but if you were the guy behind me, I'm so sorry. That's why, and it's never too late to start learning, right? I was
Mhm.
24 when I started learning more about Torah and Judaism. It's never too late to start learning. You can always start learning. And I'm telling you, if you have to pick one thing, I know I'm going to sound like a shill for the corporate, but you got to learn Hasidus, the Lubavitch Rebbe's Hasidic ideas. And I'll tell you why. Quick story. Student, former student. I don't invite current students ever to come for Shabbos meals, whatever. Plenty of professors, I'm sure, do have social things with students. I feel like you have to create a professional separation. But a lot of former students or other students at the university, Shabbos meals, whatever, they find out about us, come over.
Mm.
Student, this is a while ago, is, they're there for Shabbos dinner. And she says to my daughter, she says, wait, your father didn't grow up religious? Or I think she said Orthodox. And my daughter said labels are for clothing, not for people, which she,
Right.
she got
Good answer.
she got a gift for that one. It's like, excellent. Well done. Gold star. Excellent. And then she's like, what, your father didn't grow up observant? Like, why did he start keeping Shabbat? And my daughter jokingly, or maybe not so jokingly, said, well, the Rebbe talks about keeping Shabbos in a sicha, in one of his
Mm.
in his talks. And the student, who was from more of a traditional background, was a little bit like, and so I overheard the end of this conversation. So I walked over. I said, what my daughter means to say, and I think she was saying it in a tongue in cheek way, is that growing up, I knew there was this thing called Shabbos, but I never felt any compunction or interest or to even know what that meant. It
Mm.
was only when I started learning Chassidus did I really start to understand why somebody should care about mitzvahs,
Mm.
right? Because the truth of the matter is we're all connected with Hashem. There's nothing you can do to make us not connected. The question is, but what are you going to do about that connection? And that's what I'm saying. If you can only learn one
Mm.
thing, learn Chassidus. There's great stuff out there. You should absolutely do it. And along those lines, if you are not yet in college and you are a high school student who's thinking, I'm going to college, the best thing you could ever do is go to yeshiva for a little bit of time before you go to college, just to learn those critical thinking skills, to invest in your. I'm not saying don't go. I'm saying first,
Mm.
and there's some great gap year programs. My Note in Israel has one, and there are programs everywhere. So definitely you should do that. And I think that and I guess the one thing I want people to learn is to know is, if you pray to Hashem, if you turn to Hashem when you need help and you
Mm.
learn more Torah, in the words of Rabbi Goldberg, I am confident you will be successful.
Hmm. Beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rabbi Dr. Abrams. That was beautiful message and a very incredible story. We wish you continued success in all that you're doing, and continued growth in your field of study, and as well with your students. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Thank you. What a great message from Rabbi Dr. Abrams. So many great messages from that interview of his. It was just a fascinating journey, fascinating to see somebody in that position. I love how he explains how it's not two worlds, how God is in every world, how it's through science that he finds God as well, and how it's there's no contradiction between what he's doing. I love how his being there has influenced people in an incredible way, like that student that he shared, who was ready to not eat kosher and give up God during his time in college, and realized that when he saw him, that this was a message from God, that you can do both. I loved how he explained as well how his first interaction with Rabbi Korn in New York University was in NYU. how that first interaction where he was told it's not an all or nothing, just try one thing and use that data. How we never know with what we are saying can make such an impact on a person and completely really change over their lives. You see, of course, the divine providence happening and weaving through his entire story, how the Seder was canceled by his relative, and how he so seemingly just found the ad for the Seder by the Chabad house, specifically on the Rebbe's birthday, one day after his own birthday. It's really amazing through these stories how we see God's hand just woven in, and how God is really teaching us a message and bringing us to our destiny. There was a lot of really incredible points to what he was saying, especially how he seamlessly brings together his work in the university and his work as a Hasidic Jew. I also really appreciated his point of what he was saying, how he knew that Torah existed. He knew so many aspects of Torah, but he didn't see it as something personal. And, there's so often that we can know something, we can have a knowledge about something, we can even know it very well. But if we don't personally make that connection, which is what mitzvah is, as he explained, is the idea of tzavta, connection, bringing that into our own lives, connecting it to our own lives. And we might know the information, but it's actually making the connection and living it that makes such a difference. If you enjoy watching these interviews, I hope you are subscribed to Chabad.org/extraordinary. Please subscribe as well if you're watching us on YouTube or on any of our podcast platforms. Give us a like, subscribe, let us know what you liked, send us some feedback. We love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this extraordinary community.